The Dingers podcast is on the air. How are you guys tonight? We get to talk the best team in baseball about that team tonight. Are you guys excited to talk about the best team in the second half so far?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, they're undefeated.
Undefeated.
How could you not be excited about this team right now?
3-0. Lots to love.
Just great baseball this weekend. Jeffrey, I hear you're like a Jedi master now, taking Padawans under your wing, and they're calling you sir. How are things going there in Ames and Nevada?
Well, it's the last time I'm ever going to be nice to anybody. It just bites you right in the ass. You get a little buddy that you got to scrape off like a barnacle. So there's that.
I'm just happy that you're taking young ones under your wing.
I know. 2 years ago, I would have been a total.
2 years ago, 2 weeks ago.
You're right. You're right. I don't know what came over me. I wish I wouldn't have done it now. I'll tell you that. But other than that, everything's not bad.
Needless to say, Jeff has a gym buddy that's young, that's looking up to Jeff as the master. So it's good. Kevin, how are you doing this weekend? Were you out there working on your deck?
Yeah, we made the mistake a couple years ago of, I don't know, putting down a not great stain on our deck. So I've got to strip it, scrape it, and sand it before I actually get back to the wood that I can then stain. So it's a pain in the butt. So that's what I've been working on today because it was nice and cool outside.
It was. And Jake, you have a sweet mustache. Is back. It's back and ready to be the coach. How's coaching going? You leading those young ones?
Man. Aside from kids not really showing up, we had 2 players this weekend, so that was great. But the kids that were there, I mean, they're really into it. I found out that one of my kids is a left-handed thrower, but has a right-handed throwing glove. But the dude's got a cannon. Like the kids. They're 7 and 8. I don't know the specific ages of all of them, but he can throw. He can really throw. So I got to find him a lefty glove somehow. And then there was a kid's cousin. I felt like a scout, you guys. There was a kid's cousin was helping us volunteer. 16 years old. He's in town from California, and as I'm out there coaching, like walking around, I got my glove on and everything. He asked me, like, 15 minutes into the game, he goes, "Hey, can you catch?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, what do you mean? Can I catch? And I was like, "Oh, he means like catch, like a catcher." And so I clarify, and he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" He said, "Can I throw to you after the game?" So he threw to me after the game. He's never played organized baseball before. His older brother, I guess, did, but this kid had a cannon. And I'm standing there with his aunt after we played. He had no idea where the ball was going. No idea. But like
that's exciting.
Yeah. It was I was like he wanted
kind of
me
like
to get
Carlos
down.
Marmol back in the day.
Right.
Yeah. He wanted me to get, oh, dude, the tail on his fastball too. This kid's fastball is insane. So long story short, after I'm playing with him, I say to him and his aunt, I'm like, you got to keep playing baseball. I said, I don't care what you're doing in the spring right now, but go out for the baseball team next year. And he's going to be there this upcoming Saturday. And then he heads back to California. So we'll see if I got him hooked or not.
I may have missed it, but what age group?
So I coach 7 and 8 year olds. This kid that was throwing is 16. So I'm assuming he's going to be maybe a junior in high school.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he plays football and basketball right now. And
so, are you looking for like a fake birth certificate for this kid, or what do we need?
It was a family member that was watching the game, Jeff.
I am 12.
Yeah. Hey, it would benefit him because I really this kid is an athlete. So I told him here's the angle that I told him. I said I was like, yeah, I mean, like you could go pro in the NFL or the NBA, but how many rounds are there drafts? The MLB has a 20-round draft. And his eyes kind of lit up. He was like, oh, I didn't know that. So, just throwing it out there for any kids listening. 20 rounds to get drafted versus 7 or 2.
Yep. Well, we got an exciting episode for you guys tonight. We have Greg Zumach of Northsidebound. We have an interview him. We pre-recorded. Great stuff on the draft. Great stuff that's going to lead into the trade deadline, which the trade deadline is like what, a week away? I think it's like a week away. I think it's during the Cardinal series next
like
Tuesday. So
the second?
Yeah, I think it's the second. So leading into the trade deadline, I have some things that we're going to give away to try to generate some followers and some subscribers, but just to we need some joy during this trade deadline. And so I moved, and so I've got to go through all my old Cub stuff. And so I'm going to give some of that away. And so a couple of things is like this 1990s All-Star Game button.
That's vintage. I don't know if you can really get rid of that, Mitch.
Vintage. I have 4 of them. So
you get rid of one.
I can get rid of one. I have this Cubs Fleer complete set of the Cubs box set that I'm going to give away.
Jake wants to win it.
I have some other baseball cards, just other old Cub stuff that we might be giving away as we head towards the trade deadline we need some joy, not just prospects, but makes us a little bit happy as we might lose some of our favorite players from the Chicago Cubs. But we still have them playing for the Cubs, and we just swept the Phillies 3 games, had a home run derby on Friday, had an extra inning affair, and then a nail biter that we squeaked out, the Yan Gomes game on Sunday. So let's talk about it. What were some of your kind of takeaways, Jake, from this weekend?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, I was tuning into the Cubs on Tap guys last night after the game, and they were kind of talking about it, and I agreed. I mean, it just felt like a full team effort. I think over the past few years, I mean, really since 2016, we have seen a lack of every group of players on the team clicking. So, hitting, defense, pitching, bullpen, obviously, I think separate from starting pitching. So this weekend we got all of it. A little nervous with Steele out on the bump, giving up a leadoff shot to Schwarber. But I think the way that he settled in when he clearly didn't have his best stuff says a lot about how our pitchers are able to grow in what's otherwise definitely like a lost season. So I love that. I love that Steele is having those experiences. It just felt good. It felt good. Like going into the weekend, it was like, after the break, it's like, well, the Phillies had been surging before the break. And then you stick it to them with a 3-game sweep in Philadelphia. Velazquez, I know we're going to talk about Velazquez. Like, how can you not be excited about him right now? Just a good all-around team performance. Jeff, Kevin, what'd you guys see?
Well, after we hung 15 on them on Friday, I'm thinking we're going to score 1 run and lose by 3 on Saturday, which turned out not to be the case. So that was exciting to see him win 6-2 on Saturday, and followed up with a 1-run win yesterday for the sweep. Kevin?
Yeah, I was really excited that they won that extra innings game. I mean, they've been so terrible in extra innings, and then they won, and not even by just getting that 1 runner in. I mean, they kind of went off, and you probably saw it all across Twitter and other blogs and whatnot. Like, it all started with Horner stealing third and kind of getting ahead, and then that just kind of changed the dynamic of how that inning was going. But I agree with you, Jake. Everybody seemed to be clicking and working well. And we have had these strings where like the starting pitching's awesome, but we can't hit for crap, or the starting pitching and the hitting's doing well and the bullpen is imploding for some reason. And so all of it going well was pretty awesome. But for me, like the big takeaway that I thought about was Christopher Morel. I mean, he went off that series, had 3 doubles. He batted what, 583 or
No rookie has a better WRC plus than Christopher Morel.
Yeah. And imagine he jumped from AA. I was just thinking about this earlier today. He went from AA up, and it was expected for him to, stick for a little bit and then get sent down, and he just keeps hitting. And they keep moving him 9-1, 1-9, 9-1, and he just keeps playing.
He's unfazed.
Yeah, the thing that I kind of took away was the contribution from the players that we got that helped us win every single one of those games we got from Nico Horner, Seiya, Morel, Velazquez, Justin Steele pitched great. Marcus Stroman pitched great. All those guys that played a huge role in our wins are guys that are going to be sticking around after the trade deadline, and things that we can look forward to if they keep playing like they are. And I tweeted it in, I think, the beginning of before Saturday's game. I want to see Nelson Velazquez in the lineup more. Like, I like his role where he is right now. Like, he's thriving in his role. He's coming in late. He's hitting bombs and playing decent defense. Like, but I want to see him get at bats. Like, I want to see him get more at bats because he hits the ball. He drives the ball. He has a high slug percentage. Like, the dude knows how to play. So I know, Jake, you wanted to bring up a little bit from The Athletic, an article that kind of touched on that point. Do you want to hit on that?
Yeah, I couldn't sleep last night. So if you check my Twitter feed, you'll see that I was tweeting at 11:30 and midnight Central Time last night. Read a great piece by Sahadev Sharma. I won't give the whole thing away, but he offers 5 names, well, 6 technically, of players to look forward to after the trade deadline. And the angle was he was kind of gearing Cubs fans up with like, hey, for this upcoming week, we're going to be hearing a lot of trade rumors, which sucks, especially after last year. It sucks. But the angle that he didn't explicitly say it this way, but like what I garnered from it was like, whoa, we actually have something exciting to watch in the second half or the post-deadline Cubs team this year versus last year. It was like, oh, well, maybe we'll see what Schwindel and Wisdom and Ortega can do. But in the back of our minds, we knew that those guys weren't going to be pieces of the future. And it's there, there's a good chance that Ortega and Wisdom, maybe less so Wisdom, but there's a good chance that those guys get dealt at the deadline this year. So that exactly shows, like, watching them last year, like, didn't really, it felt kind of hollow, right? It's just like, oh, I'm watching the Cubs, they're on. But this year, like talking about Velazquez and Morel especially, I'm going to be heartbroken, not if, but when Hap gets dealt. But we were kind of talking about before we went live, like, we have outfielders. We've got guys that can come in and deserve that playing time and are younger and need that opportunity to develop. So that's kind of what this piece by Sahadev was about. He did not mention Velazquez. I'll give away one, but obviously Seiya Suzuki. I mean, we know that obviously he's going to be locked down for what was it, a 5-year contract? Is it 5 years?
Yep. Yeah. Pretty sure.
So he's obviously going to be playing every day after the break. And I think he's only going to get better. Like, I think we're going to see that this guy's got all-star, caliber potential in him, and he's going to be fun to watch. So Cubs fans, it's going to suck this upcoming week with the trade deadline next Tuesday. And obviously we'll talk you through it. We'll be here next Monday night talking about it. But there's more to look forward to after the deadline this year.
Yeah, definitely. Since we've talked about the deadline, I mean, we have to bring up a little bit after yesterday's game of Drew Smyly. Like, do you pitch him again? Like, or do you
Did you see Bleacher Nation's recap thing? It was like, okay, one got another good outing out of him. Go put him on ice. We won't see him again in the Cubs uniform. Like, done.
Yeah.
Done.
Like, I keep on seeing Cody Domingo, like, his trade value going up and up and up from CHGO. It's like, yeah, like might be his peak. Like, he just went out and took care of a playoff contending team that's trying to make the playoffs and shut them down. And they're pretty stacked offense. I mean, Castellanos isn't hitting well. They got their struggles, but like, he put it to them, and he's pitched well after coming back from the injury list. I kind of relate it to this, that like, I took my son fishing the other day, and he caught a pretty nice smallmouth bass. It was like, I don't know, 7 inches, 8 inches. This is a pretty good size smallmouth bass. It's like, if we're dangling him out there to net us a pretty good fish, I would say before we're aiming at probably a bluegill to get back, but now we're like, after this outing of him, it's like we can aim a little bit higher. We can go after like a largemouth bass. We could go after a northern. Like, why not? Like, we could use him to get something a little bit better than I think what we originally thought. I know at least what I thought when we signed him way back in the offseason. Like, yeah, we can maybe flip this guy, but I was looking more at Wade Miley as being the one that we're going to really flip and maybe get something back because of injury that isn't going to happen. But there's plenty of teams that are looking for a 4th, 5th starter to make a run into the playoffs. And Drew Smiley, lefty, could prove to be able to net us something more than I originally thought. What are you guys thinking?
Right. I totally agree. At the beginning of the season, I thought, Wade Miley was our big pitching trade piece. And Drew Smiley, like at the time, I didn't even really know who he was. Couldn't remember him being on a team in the past, but watching him pitch now after coming out of the injury, he has looked really good. Like you said, a good 4th, 5th starter. Somebody's going to eat those later season innings as they make their push. And he reminds me a lot of, and man, I am losing names again. He was our 5th starter in the 2016.
Jason Hamill?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Just kind of that solid guy that could go out there. You as long as the offense clicked, you were going to win that game.
He had 3 games that season where he gave up 10 runs before the 4th inning.
Right? It didn't make any sense, but it worked.
Hand cramps. He ate potato chips during the All-Star break.
Yeah. Oh my God. The best story. The best storyline. His doctor told him eat potato chips. Yeah.
Why not a banana or just a potato, like a roast of? It's got to be a greasy potato chip.
There's something with the oil and the salts and like they were electrolytes
he needed both.
and potassium. Yeah.
It was it kettle chips? Was it something specific?
Jalapeno.
I don't know. It's just, I think of the funniest like athlete. It's like up there with like the weird injury stories.
So it was like jalapeno kettle chips. He'd rub it on his nose, get his nose running real good, put some snot on the ball. Fantastic.
Everybody loves a snot ball. Yeah, I mean, I think too with Smiley, it's worth noting like he didn't have a great playoffs with the Braves last year, but he pitched in the postseason with the Braves last year. There's a history of trades between the Braves and the Cubs. I wouldn't be surprised if we send them right back.
Yeah.
If we can fetch a Bryce Ball type prospect, a flyer on a guy like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how great a prospect we're going to get back. But hey, at this point, it's all icing on the cake, I think. So yeah, knock on wood that he stays healthy and we could get something in return.
Now, since we're talking about trades, like I know last week you said, Jake, that in any trade, we better not be going after pitching. We should be loading up on offense. And I'm excited for you guys to listen to the Greg Zumach interview because I asked him that question of who should we be going after in trades. And so I'm interested to how you guys react to that. But at this point, where do you think we go? Do you think we're going to have I know Jed has a strategy. They definitely had a strategy going into the draft. Where do you think they're trying to shore up? I think they're going to try to get a catcher. I think they're going to try to find, because I think that's the one spot in our system that is really weak is the catcher of finding like a star. And if we're going to trade away Happ or Contreras or Robertson, that's going to be what I look for. But again, when you're making trades, you're looking for the best available piece, and that could come anywhere. Anyway, they're just trying to get the best that they can possibly get. And if it's another shortstop, then get another great shortstop and we can move him somewhere and find a place for him. But where do you think we go? Jeff, where do you think we attack the trade deadline?
Well, you brought it up, a fine point. If we're going to lose our all-star catcher, we're going to need somebody to play backstop at some point. Even though, isn't Miguel Amaya on the amend? But
he is. He's back. Yeah. He's back DHing.
He's batting. Yep.
So he's at least batting. So I say we got to get a couple of catching prospects, at least one good one that's almost ready for the big leagues. But I don't know what else. I mean, we got plenty of outfielders. We got plenty of middle infielders. Need a third baseman, maybe. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, and that's what I was trying to look up. There was somebody promoted to Iowa just recently. Oh, Matt Mervis.
Mervis.
Mhm.
Yep.
He's a
plays
stud.
first base, right?
Absolutely
Mash
rakes.
Mervis.
Yep.
Right. And because initially my head went first base. Like, oh, maybe we need, and then I was like, wait, no, Iowa just got a new first baseman and he's really good.
He's
so
won
that's
Player of the
not
Month
it,
a couple times this year, or Player of the Week
right?
in the
Mhm.
minors a
He
couple
is
times.
he is leading them. I think he's leading all of baseball, MLB included, in RBI, and he's on pace for like 137 RBI or something like that. It's insane.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So like, obviously first base, maybe not. I don't know if there's, is there a lack of depth behind him in that position? I don't know. Third base, maybe it's another place I kind of look at. Maybe we're a little light there. I don't know, but I agree with you, Mitch, because it's hard to predict where what you want to get, because you have to have the team that wants the players you're going to trade, and they have to have the pieces you're looking for. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with more pitching, even though we just drafted a ton of pitching, because that might be what's high up in their organization
I have a
or what
question.
they're willing to deal.
Are they even putting the jersey top in Jason Hayward's locker anymore?
That's a great question, actually.
That is a
Yeah.
good question. I hadn't thought of that.
I saw an update. I saw an update, and it was just like, Jason Hayward has continued baseball activities. It's like, okay, so we just talk about putting somebody on ice. Like, that's Hayward right now. He just
Well, that's
is-
what, like, my brother just asked me, is like, whatever happened to Simmons, Hayward, and Hermosillo? I was like, that is a great
Hermosillo is
question.
a great question.
I was like, that's a
actually.
great question. I think they're on the DL or IL,
Oh,
and we haven't really been told what their injury was. I think it was, we don't want to hurt their feelings in DFAM, so we're just like sending them to Arizona, and they get to play baseball there, but where no fans can watch them or want to watch them.
Hermosillo hasn't played since we went to the Brewers game.
Yeah, he's got a he's got
Yep.
that was a few
He was like
months ago.
0 for 5
He's got
that day.
He's got a quad strain, and on June 30th they transferred him to the 60-day IL. So whatever he's
Did they-
dealing with is
Did they retroactivate that, or did they just
No,
start
they
fresh?
didn't. They didn't back that date that one.
no.
I do want to talk about Marcus Stroman, because this is, since coming back from the IL, this is his second decent start in a row. Has looked really, really good. Pitched well. I mean, it's good to see that now we're kind of getting what we kind of paid for in the offseason, or what we all kind of expected from Stroman. Do you think this is kind of like get the ball rolling, and he's going to have a really solid second half of the season and get us Cubs fans excited for next year? Or what are you expecting of Marcus Stroman the rest of the season?
Oh my God, he just said the Cubs next year. Goodness. Yeah. Go ahead, Jake.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Fine. I think this is Stroman this is what we can expect going forward. Stroman's a gamer. I think that he's got the bulldog mentality. He's got that dog in him. I think that Stroman is going to be the one that rights the ship. You know, if we hit a rough patch, I think we'll be able to depend on him going forward. I don't see any reason why not. I haven't looked at like the peripheral numbers and stuff like that, like the hard hit rate let up, or anything like swinging strike rates, etc. But just like how consistent he's been over his career, I don't think that there's any reason outside of injury to expect anything less than what he has been. I think he expects it of himself. So I anticipate a good strong second half from Stroman. Jeff?
Oh, I kind of, felt like he probably sweep this season under the rug, but yeah, I think he's going to continue to get better and stronger and kind of give us a glimpse of what we kind of expected all year. It's just so crazy that he's not great in Wrigley Field, but he's pretty fantastic on the road. I mean,
That's an
Just
interesting
he
way to look
he
at it.
doesn't have great stats at home
no.
so far, but has pitched really well for the Cubs on the road. I'd like to see. I mean, he hasn't had that many starts in
No.
Wrigley, but I'd like to see. Like, that's a great point for us to kind of watch the rest of the season. Is how does he pitch at home? Because he has given up a ton of runs at home.
Do we have a thing, and maybe it's just because I'm immediately thinking of a couple other pitchers, where we bring in a new starting pitcher and they just struggle for like the first half of a season or something? I mean, Darvish struggled for a while. I want to say Lester struggled for a little bit when he
Lester did
first.
struggle for at least a month.
Yeah.
I think it's Kevin.
That
I
he
think
couldn't
it's,
throw to
it-
first.
I think it has to do with, like, if you look at anybody any player that signed a new contract, almost always it feels like nowadays they struggle. I mean, look at Castellanos. We just saw that Castellanos is being booed in Philly.
Right.
Which is
He
Yeah.
deserves it
it's
too.
a stupid question.
He's terrible. This is playing terrible.
I mean, I don't blame him. But, like, I would be upset too. Like, of course he heard it.
Right.
Corey Seager and Marcus Simeon struggled to start the season in Texas. There's one other. Correa had a brutal start to the season.
Yep.
So, like, I think that it's just kind of like, oh wow, now I'm being paid, tens of millions of dollars. I got to prove that I'm worth this contract. I mean, imagine being under that stress, like in any job, let alone when you've got 90, 95 plus mile an hour fastballs coming at you, or the best hitters in baseball standing across the way from you. That's daunting.
And he was dealing with a COVID. He had a COVID for a little bit, and he was dealing with another injury. So, like, it kind of started not very smooth with a shortened spring training. Like, so I'm interested, and I'm gonna watch that, Jeff. Like, that's a great point of, like, how does he start pitching at Wrigley? Does it improve? Is the Marcus Stroman that we've seen with the Mets and with Toronto, is that what we're going to see here? Because I would love to see it. I'd love to him be kind of the springboard to get the ball rolling and get the fans back excited. And I think he was, like, in the offseason, he was what got the fans excited to start with this season. And so I'd like to see him kind of carry that on. But I know one other name that gets me excited, and I think this is my time to weekly talk about Nico Horner. The dude is freaking amazing. He's playing like one of the top 5 shortstops in all baseball, and I think we should just extend him now. Can we do that? Can we get Jed to extend him and sign him a lifetime contract?
I am so on board with that. I'm on.
Like,
I mean, I don't think it would be a Bodie type contract, because obviously what Bodie was, a 17th round pick or whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, you could kind of frame it as, like, I don't think they'd talk about it, but like, hey, you've been injured, but we really believe in you. But we're a little. It's been fluky injuries, but man, yeah, I like that.
I think he ages well too. Like, you can slide him over to,
100%.
like, he's going to be a bat to ball guy even more so when he gets older. Like, I think he's going to go through a stretch here in the next 2-3 years where he's going to start driving the ball. But then after his power declines a little bit, he's still got the bat to ball, and like, he's still going to have speed. Like, I mean, I like Nico Horner so much. He's my favorite.
I like that idea of extending him. I'm looking at his Fangraphs page right now, and he's ARB eligible next year, and then he's a free agent in 26. It'd be nice to lock that down and know you have him for a while,
Yep.
maybe till 2030 or so.
Have they extended anybody lately?
Bodie was
on,
the last one.
My
Bodie and
goodness.
Hendricks, yeah.
Hendricks,
Bodie.
yeah. Hayward,
wish we
maybe
still
a
had the
Hayward
Scalzo.
extension's coming.
Maybe a Hayward extension. Why not? Like, maybe they'll offer him a coaching contract. Can we just switch that? We're in the 7th inning right now. Cubs are 2-2 with the Pirates. We're recording on a Monday night. I really think
still pitching.
Samson's still pitching, like, strong.
96 pitches.
2 outs
My
in the
thing
7th.
is, I think we need to get David Ross ejected in this game for us to win it. Like, I think
Light a fire.
I think that's the key to our success in the second half is
onto
David Ross
something
getting
there.
ejected from games, because it's been like 4 out of the last 6 games. He's got the boot.
Is there somewhere where we could look up how many times the Braves won when Bobby Cox got ejected? Because he get ejected like
that's a good
800
question.
times or something.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
a
what the
correlation
record
there.
was.
I've liked some of the Ross ejections have been like the softest ejections too.
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
like barely come out and said anything and the umpire just like lazily points like, yeah, you're gone. Okay, now we can talk. Like,
He has to do one of those things where he says you.
Yeah.
Like
right.
where he really names the like you are rather than that play was. So it's about the phrasing. You can't say, you can't attack the umpire. You can say what the play was, but yeah, I mean, maybe. I like what Ross, it has been like very calm. I can even go back to the Hap when Hap got ejected.
Right.
Like, it was just ridiculous. Like a week and a half ago of him like walking away, getting ejected. And now here, Ross getting, but we're winning games, and so I'm waiting for here and maybe the extra innings for him to get the boot and get us a W.
I have a question, a potential topic. It's on our list. I don't know if you were going to go to it, but I wanted to ask this because I'm interested in your guys' opinions. Because I've kind of initially I had one opinion and I've changed. But do you think the Cubs should go after Soto?
I say no.
Ooh, interesting. Sell me on this.
He is one player, and you've seen this year with him with the Nationals. Even when they made it to the World Series, what did they have? They had amazing pitching. That's not what the Cubs have, unless they're willing to just unload the bank at the free agents here coming. But I mean, there isn't the level of free agents available to get top pitching prospects right now. So I would say no, because it's going to cost the Cubs minor league too much. And the whole plan with the Cubs the last 2 or 3 years, what Jetta's kind of plan is, we're going to restock the minor league system. There's kind of two ways to rebuild. Either you restock the minor league system or you do it through free agency. And the Cubs have chosen to do it through free agency. So it'd be kind of ridiculous now to like abort that plan and then try to go after Juan Soto. I mean, the amount of money you're gonna have to then offer him a contract and the players that you're gonna have to give up to get him, I just don't think it's worth it. I think the plan that they are doing right now of stockpiling that minor leagues and getting a ton of talent and seeing who shakes out and who's the best, and then using them as trade pieces to get even better, kind of like how they did the last time, but they have a lot more of it this time. I think that's the best way, but that's me. What are your thoughts, Jake?
I think, well, I like Laz in the comments here. Said no, thumbs down, follow the Hoyer plan. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think that too many fans are skeptical of the Hoyer plan right now because it's been a year. Like it's been, well, right. I guess 2 years, right? I mean, but it's no. Whatever. It's all time's a flat circle. COVID screwed everything up for me. I don't know when Jed or when Theo left, but
well, didn't we get Theo in 2010?
Yeah. So, but yeah,
it took him 6 years to win the World Series. Give Jed some chime.
I agree with what you said, Mitch. I think what people will say on the other end, like what the argument that I've heard in context of different teams is that, oh, you're trading these guys that might become Juan Soto, but they're not Juan Soto. And Soto's only 23 years old and could be the cornerstone of your franchise for years to come. But it's like the other side that I saw then too was I was listening to a great podcast and they had, bless you. They had Ariel Cohen on, who's a great baseball fantasy writer, great fantasy baseball player. And he was talking about trading for Soto. And he said, listen, if you trade 5 pieces, which is what it's going to take, if you trade 5 pieces for Soto and you get him and he gets injured or he has recurring nagging injuries, you're out whatever WAR or WRC plus you just traded for him. You're out 5 players. So yes, Soto's a generational talent. And should the Cubs look into it? Of course. But it's not something that I'm like, rah, we got to do about, I'm not, no. because I like the talent that we've accumulated. We have surplus talent for sure. We're kind of seeing it right now, but keep building it and then trade that surplus talent when we are competitive to get those extra pieces.
Yeah, I would be so ticked if you saw like Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos, DJ Hurst, PCA, like all them gone. It's like, what? Like, that's what we traded Bryant and Rizzo and Baez all for. What was the whole point of that? If we then just flip those for Juan Soto, it's like, that would just seem ridiculous. That would seem so dumb.
You're trying to build something sustainable in Chicago. Like, people always say, like, well, why aren't we like the Yankees and the Dodgers? And the Dodgers specifically, because and we've talked about the Cardinals on here as much as we hate to say it. Like, they always have guys coming up because their player development and their scouting is good. That is what the Cubs are trying to establish right now in Chicago. But I think they're on the right track.
And I'll hear people say, like, well, I thought that was what Theo was supposed to do the first time. It's like, yes, Theo did do that. He just didn't stockpile the minor league system enough. Like,
he didn't sell when like Hap being traded right now is going to suck, but Jed's doing what Theo should have done in the competitive cycle to replenish the farm system.
And like, I mean, the farm system after the Bryant and all of them went up, it was pretty bare. Even that you had 4 guys and we used those in trade pieces, and then it left us with nothing. It's like, now we have like a surplus of minor league, and it's only going to get more once our draft this year and next year, because we'll have a good draft pick next year. And then all these trades, like there's going to be a surplus. So there's going to be plenty of guys to go through, which leads me into the Cubs have signed 8 of their 10 draft picks so far, including Cade Horton, the number 1 or the first round pick for the Cubs. Man, I'm excited. And I just saw a tweet. Where is it? Of Nazir Moulay, who is at Sloan Park right now. He took a picture in the stands and tweeted it out. Which awesome. That dude, if I would encourage you, like we're going to talk about him in the Greg Zumach interview, I would encourage you to go and look at highlights of Nazir Moulay, like a high school draftee that plays shortstop, but also gets on the mound and closes out games pumping like 100 and has absolute filthy stuff and has a personality to boot that's like super fun. So
he's so mature too, like so mature for his age. It's ridiculous.
He is. So do we want, let's go to that interview. Cause it's great. Here is my interview with Greg Zumach of Northsidebound. We are joined by Greg Zumach, co-founder and writer of Northsidebound.com. If you need any information on prospects, he's my number 1 place to go. That website is my number 1 place to go, and it should be yours also. So I'm pleased to welcome Greg Zumach to the Dingers podcast. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much. We've kind of been talking about doing this for a while and just, I don't know, excited to dive into what I imagine will be a lot of draft talk with the folks listening to Dingers.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Let's start out by talking about the first 2 picks, since those were kind of like the headliners. I would say, or kind of the main focus was on them, Cade Horton and Jackson Ferris. Where do you see, like, what do you see the Cubs see in them, and where do you see them kind of landing in the Cubs organization, like starting out wise?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I mean, that was the talk of the draft, right? Is the fact that all of these bats were sitting there. And everybody who was watching Brooks Lee, a shortstop out of Cal Poly, or Zach Neto, who I talked a ton about, or all these Cam Collier, who I love as a prospect, and they're all there. And the Cubs didn't go that way, and that was it was super surprising. And during the draft, I was getting, and this is, I won't specify from where, but I was getting messages. Oh, the Cubs are going arm, and it's like, oh, really? Like, I don't know. You get messages during the time, but But then it came out to be true. It was Horton. So it's just really exciting. But you have to, Mitch, I totally agree. You have to talk about those 2 picks together. Like, that's so critical, right? Because it isn't just the Cubs really wanted Horton, which they did. And actually, I've got some background piece that may or may not be out by the time this is out. That's coming on, basically how the Cubs got Cade Horton. But they also really, it honestly was really cool experience kind of diving into that. And then, but they also really love Jackson Ferris. And both those guys were pretty widely seen by the industry as first rounders. And so I kind of liken it a little bit to when an NFL team trades down. But the interesting thing is you could make the argument that they traded down for two higher upside guys, right? So I am not as skilled in football analogies, so bear with me here. But it's kind of like the Cubs trading down, or the Bears trading down, if you want to use that example, from like maybe like a really good future all-pro tackle to land a toolsy defensive end and a safety or a corner. Like that's kind of how they did it. And I mean, I'm game for the upside, right?
Yep.
Cade Horton has some pretty wicked stuff, mostly led by a slider. This is a guy that has been on teams' radar since 2018, 2019. He was in the draft in 2020, pulled his name out. The Cubs, and this isn't inside information, but their VP, Dan Kantovitz, the VP of scouting, that was his first draft. And then a really stud area scout of theirs, Ty Nichols, who landed Jordan Wicks. He's landed Cole Franklin, and among many other players. They were in his house in high school in 2020, basically saying like, hey, if you're staying in the draft, like we're still really interested. Well, fast forward a few years later, he's starting to come back from Tommy John. The training wheels were on by his college program, which is understandable. And then slowly throughout the season, the training wheels came off and he started really throwing some pretty impressive stuff. Fast forward to right about towards the end of the year, and things just aren't really working well with his slider kind of cutter. He changes the grip after a conversation and a little bit of a session with one of his teammates, Ben Abram, and is wicked stuff. Like it's if you want to use scouting terms as a 70, it's plus. Yeah. And it's really impressive. And it's got this like wicked, like horizontal movement. I think it actually can be even better the more they work on it. Looking at the data, I really do. But it's amazing.
I mean, and he's only used it for a short time, so give him a little bit more time in the pitch lab and let the Cubs work their magic. Like,
5 starts. 5. And the coolest thing is that he was not like throwing this against, I don't want to disparage any particular college program, but he wasn't throwing it against like, oh, this is an okay team. These are like major offensive teams that he was just like killing. So Cade Horton, I've got him as a top 10 overall prospect, which is not actually in the Cubs system. Sorry, I should specify that. Which is not actually an easy thing to crack, even for a first rounder. Yeah. So I've got him as probably 7th or 8th, somewhere in that range, but don't hold me to that until the end of the season. And then you wanted to know a little bit about Jackson Ferris?
Yes.
Yeah, so Jackson Ferris is a left-handed pitcher out of IMG Academy. And what's interesting is that this is a guy who has a more full repertoire. So usually when I go to showcases and actual scouts go to showcases and all that, you see these college or high school pitchers who throw maybe about 1, 2, maybe 3 innings, and they're usually just like fastball breaking ball. And that's fine. Like you can get the gist out of what the potential is, right? But Jackson Ferris would go out there and he would throw like complete games. Like he's the dude. He's actually playing the whole game. And so you could get a full glance of his repertoire. And by the accounts that I've had, they're very impressed. This is a very much a first round caliber guy. Pipeline had him in the top 20, I believe. Most places had him as a first rounder. I mean, when his name came out, I was doing literal fist bumps because I was like, that is a good way to take Cade Horton for what we now know as underslot. That's been, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but it's been reported at least. Take him underslot, use that money for Jackson Ferris. I was like, all right, yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yep. And then I'm just picturing down the line of a rotation with him, Jordan Wicks, and DJ Hers, lefty power. Oh man, that's like just straight filth coming. out of the left side.
That's a rotation with that is lefty power, but lefty moxie.
Yeah.
Like, good luck to whoever the future manager, maybe Ross or whoever, is that tries to take those guys out of a game in like a tight situation.
Oh,
because
yeah.
those are bulldogs.
Yeah. You brought up Cantervitz.
Mhm.
Pairing him up now, this is the first draft where we've seen Carter Hawkins and him together kind of like making the moves. Do you think Cubs fans now can have a little bit more trust in the draft? Like, for so many years prior to this, like, we haven't really put a lot of stock in the draft because we haven't really, I think as Cubs fans, we don't trust who is in charge of making the decisions. Now we got some guys that, like, okay, they're proven. We've seen them make some good drafts for other teams. Do we as Cubs fans can now put a little bit more trust in the draft?
I mean, you know, I'll own a little bit of an inherent bias on that, but yeah, I mean, I do think so. Yeah, this is the first draft paired up with Carter Hawkins. Although I think this can be said now. Like, I really get the sense that the Cade Horton pick was not that Carter wasn't involved, because I know he was, but definitely both an independent play with like scouting, but also with Craig Breslow too. I mean, I do get the sense of that. And that's really good. And I think they do merit some trust, because if we look at, I kind of take 2020 out of it. I don't want to give anybody a pass here, but it was a weird year, right? You get 5 rounds, and actually it's still looking okay. I think it's pretty good. I mean, Ed Howard is a great kid, and he just had a freak injury. Yeah. But he was already looking better. And I think there's some talent in that draft. But in 2021, I mean, Jordan Wicks, he's looked great. And he's in Double-A now. He's looking really good. I honestly don't understand why he's not already on the top 100 prospect list, but whatever. That'll probably get sorted out here pretty soon. James Triantos is looking great. Christian Franklin, also a fluke injury. That was a truly crazy thing in spring training. And Drew Gray, ton of potential. A guy that, just had Tommy John. We'll see how he comes back. Hopefully pretty strong. They they went a little bit more in on upside here in the 2022 draft. They took a lot of pitchers. And yeah, I mean, I think Carter Hawkins has got a pretty big influence on the guys they take. When I was doing my prep stuff, I'm in collaboration with some colleagues who write for the Cleveland Guardians, and where Carter Hawkins is from. And so we were collaborating on like, oh, who do you think the Cubs might target, like based on the Guardian stuff? And multiple of those targets that they mentioned were ones that the Cubs took. So yeah, I think the Hawkins influence is real, and also it's good. And so, yeah, like I trust it a little bit. I trust it more. I think it's great.
Do you think the Cubs strategy in the draft was a shift in mindset overall, taking some riskier picks or some safer picks, like with some like how do you think their strategy differed from like this year? Obviously, it was different from this year to last year, but do you think they hit a home run with their strategy, or time will tell?
Yeah, I mean, I think time will tell. There's very few times you look at a draft right after and you just say, nailed it. Although some people have said that about the Cubs, to be honest, external publications. So I think time will tell. I think they went for upside here. And I think they went for like frontline starting pitching, and power is how I describe this draft. Power arms, and of the few bats that they took, mostly power there. And so, yeah, time will tell, because pitchers do break. I guess it is good to take them in volume, too. I hope none of them do, of course. But it's so much easier to find through trades or other means, like the safe guy that you think is probably going to be a major leaguer, but maybe not ever more than a regular, or even that. Those guys are fairly easy to find in trades. And I think we can all be honest here that the trade deadline coming up is probably going to be supplying some more talent to the system, right? Like, this is just the reality. Whoever they end up picking or trading, there's going to be something.
Yep, that actually leads me to my next question, because like we talked about in our last episode about the trade deadline coming. How do you think the draft overall affects the front office approach to the desired returns that we're going to get at the deadline. Now that we have a lot of pitching, but we heard also Carter Hawkins say, we have a lot of position players that we don't want to take time away from and at bats away from. That's why we went with pitching. How do you think the draft is going to affect the trade deadline approach?
It's a good question. I don't think it would keep them from targeting a pitcher they really like. And that's good. I mean, everybody says take the best return you can. And that's totally true, right? If I had to get a sense for it, and this isn't like inside, this is just my perception of it, I think they're going to target more quality over quantity. And in previous trades, they've targeted quantity.
Yep.
And that's fair. The Yu Darvish trade has worked out very well because Owen Casey and Reginald Preciado have looked pretty good. Jason Santana's looked pretty good. Ismael Mena's kind of, he's still working on things. But Owen Casey by itself, you took like a 4-for-1 shot, and 5-for-1 was Zach Davies, but that's all right. and I don't want to disparage Victor Caratini too.
Yeah.
But they basically, it was Darvish for those guys. Owen Casey's looked amazing.
Yeah.
And so you took like a 4-for-1 shot and you got one that you absolutely nailed. I think what they're really going to do is do things more similarly to last year, where maybe even not these 2-for-1 trades, but sometimes even just these 1-for-1 trades, where the Cubs moved Baez and Trevor Williams, and it was PCA. That's what they wanted. There was just that was the one player, and we're seeing how it worked out. Because
worked out well.
Yeah, that one guy, okay, you can replace somebody, but if you're bringing in 4 guys, you have to really love them. So I get the sense that I would guess it's more quality over quantity. But hey, I guess we'll see here probably very soon.
Yep. Which pick got you most excited in the draft?
Oh man. Okay. So the Horton thing was surprising. The Ferris pick, I already was saying I was fist bumping. I had seen Pasiola. He was a shortstop in the 3rd round. And, I'm still digging in on him, but I know he's very highly rated. But the pick that I saw that I was like, no way. I was literally walking my dog and I was trying to tweet that I was going to pass out from the upside is Nazir Moulay.
Yep. That's who I wanted you to talk about.
Oh my God, dude. Okay. So I do not want to throw a Javi Baez comparison on anybody, but what I want to say is that when we talk about Javi Baez, we say there's no one like Javi. I say that all the time. And that's totally right. Nazir Moulay is not Javi. But we may be talking about years down the line that there is no one like Nazir Moulay, because that man screams upside. He can do anything on the baseball field. I would never throw a Shohei Ohtani comparison on anybody. That guy is Babe Ruth. But Nazir Moulay can do amazing things. He is throwing wicked stuff coming out of the pen after he's played an entire game at shortstop. He had the highest average exit velocity of any high school player in the showcases, higher than Elijah Green, higher than Gavin Turley. There's a few other guys, Henry Bolt. Now that doesn't mean that it's all going to be roses. I think he's going to need some time to really develop, to iron some things out. He's not a 1st-round guy. But I'm telling you, that guy has serious upside. I'm so excited that he's in the Cubs system because I think he's a future pitcher down the line, but they haven't ruled anything out about him being 2A. And at some point, you just let talent play, and then you just figure out later.
Yeah, he's got some swag to him. See him in an interview, it's fun. I'm just picturing he could be the first big name that he's playing the whole game out in the field, and then the 9th inning, high school, you bring in, or college, you bring in the guy from the field to close the game out, pumping gas. That's gonna be fun to watch. That's just and seeing his interviews, he's pretty confident. You love that. He's already confident. But he has said that he wants to be a 2-way player, but he'll kind of wait and see how things shake out going through the minors.
Yeah, man. He's so exciting. I just literally am so excited that he's going to be in the Cubs system. He's at this point publicly indicated that he's signing. He was wearing a Cubs hat in that interview.
Yeah, he already signed. Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. I'm just so excited to get him here. and just let talent take over, man. We can figure it out later. Just let him play, and you see what you can get.
How do you personally value high school pitching versus college pitching? What do you see as the pros and cons for each?
Yeah, so in the last few years, it's dramatically changed because the more and more data that teams have and scouts have on these players, the more information you can get as far as like future safety and how to develop these guys. So I think I used to be like, no, high school pitchers, like not early, late, totally fine. Now I'm much more fine with it's not my money, right? But like I would be fine with my team taking more of a significant investment in a high school pitcher early, because it's usually the biomechanical stuff. Like they've got all these incredible data points and ergonomic cameras and force plates and all this stuff where you can look at a guy, break him down and say like, okay, we can do this with their movements. We can clean this up. And you can never keep guys totally healthy, right? Like the Cubs had all this information on Drew Gray. He had Tommy John surgery. So, but at the end of the day, the line between there is blurred, and there's a whole lot more information about guys that do end up getting hurt and come back and look just as good, if not even better. So yes, college pitching is one of the safest, what we call demographics. If you look historically at the data, the vast majority of like first round picks that are college pitching, they make it's one of the higher percentages of positions. They will usually make the majors. They may or may not be an impact starter. And then you go down to pitching, high school pitching. And in recent years, the data has actually been pretty good that, those first round, second round guys, decent chance they are making the majors, and decent chance, they're having some impact there. So I think I'm much more fine with either one, to be honest, now than I would have been 2-3 years ago. So, and the Cubs took both with really like impact picks.
Sweet. Well, we'll end with this one. Give us a rating on this year's draft.
Man. Okay. All right. Yeah. Everyone always wants to know that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think, my honest answers is probably like a B. I think their execution for what they wanted to do was actually really stellar. And I'll own a bias here, but I think what they came in to do, they achieved. I personally would have taken a bat up top, although the more I dig into Cade Horton, the more I'm impressed with him. So like I totally buy that. I think the only thing that held the draft back was the fact that one of these amazing guys that was rated really, really high didn't fall to them. Now we could argue like Collier, Brooks Lee maybe met that, and I totally buy it. But like if Tamar Johnson drops to 7, Jackson Holiday drops to 7 and he's signable, which he wouldn't have been, I'm almost positive. Drew Jones was never a possibility. But like, let's say Tamar falls to 7, and maybe you just can't miss on that. I don't know how the Cubs would have drafted. That would have been like okay, lock it in. That was great. The rest of the draft, we can figure it out. So I think their execution was really, really good. I'll say a B for like just when it ended up happening, because a miracle didn't happen and Tamar didn't fall. I guess I'll say that.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Where can they find your stuff and follow you on social medias? Totally.
So well into the draft stuff right now. You can find me at Ivy Futures. So Greg Zumach. If you look up Greg Zumach, you'll probably find that account. And, just love digging into draft. I'm really excited to be wrapping that up and spending a lot more time looking at prospects, because this is always a rough time of year where I have to I got one eye on the minor league teams, but I'm really like focused so much on the draft. And now that's kind of over, and we can just celebrate the fine folks in the system. So you can find me at Ivy Futures. You can find my work primarily at Northsidebound.com, where along with Greg Huss, Jimmy Nelligan, and Todd Johnson, we write all about the Cubs. Yeah, all great follows. Follow all of them. But just Mitch, thanks so much, man. I just love talking to the fine folks here.
And make sure here at the trade deadline that you're following these guys, because they will have write-ups on all the guys that we get a haul for when the trades do happen and come. So thanks, Greg, for joining us. Really appreciate it, and go give him a follow. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye, Mitch.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So that was Greg Zumach from Northsidebound.com. Dude, the guy was awesome talking and breaking down the draft. A lot to look excited for or look forward to from our draft. I mean, we talked about it last week a little bit. We touched on it of just they went pitch heavy, but from listening to Greg, I think it makes me trust that they had a plan and they knocked it out of the park with their plan. What are your thoughts? Who was the guy? Like, I know, Jake, you were big on Nazir Moulay. Was there anybody else in the draft that you were like, yes, this is the guy that I'm really glad they got, or have you had time to look into it?
I haven't really dug in anybody else. I mean, what'd you say, Jeff?
I said there's 20 rounds. It's hard to know anything about all these people that could get drafted.
My thing right now is I'm really bad with names. One, who was the second round pick?
Jackson Ferris.
Okay, I will feel like 100% better when he signs. Like, once that is done, I'll be like, okay, so it did totally work. Because right now it's like theoretically it worked. Yep. They have the extra money, they can go pay him over slot. But if he ends up not signing, then it's like, well, it sort of worked. Like, because you didn't end up signing him, but you did get him in the second round.
I think from hearing Greg talk, I think they're pretty sure that he's going to sign. It's now just for how much, because they wouldn't take Cade first if they didn't know they could get Jackson in the second round. Like, they wouldn't do that, like, if they didn't know. So I'm pretty sure hopefully they sign him here quick and he shows up to Arizona, which that's where Greg was at when we did the interview. He was at the in Arizona watching some of the developmental league or that's going on right now in the Cubs at Sloan Park. The game's going on. So there's a lot of young guys that are rehabbing and doing different stuff that is in Arizona who's watching them. So, man, it's still 2-2, correct?
Yep.
Right. Yep.
So Cubs are going for 5 in a row. Hopefully they do that. They play the Pirates again tomorrow, and then they go out West Coast for the Giants for, I think it's 4. I think they play the Giants for 4, and then they come back for a set with St. Louis. So that will be the trade deadline, and so then we'll talk leading into the trade deadline. I don't know if we'll do a podcast on Monday or if we might just wait until the deadline on Tuesday and do a podcast on Tuesday after the trade deadline. I know we've missed it a couple times where we've done a podcast on Monday and then the Cubs like signed somebody in the off season, like the Stroman thing. We did a podcast on Monday and they signed on Tuesday. We're like, we got to wait a week now to talk about this. So we might push back our podcast next week until after the trade deadline, just so we can kind of talk about it. Because it's fun to talk about all the players and what happened, what went down. So that does it for episode 90 of the Dingers podcast. We're at 90. We're
Nice.
right there. We're close to 100. We're going to have a big celebration for our 100th episode.
I'd like some cake.
Cake? Okay.
For 100th.
All right. I'll send a cake down.
With 100 candles.
It's going to keep going.
Let's start a forest on fire.
Right.
So, that is for our episode this week. Make sure you follow us at Dinger Cubs and go Cubs. We're gonna have a good second half and a lot of fun this rest of the season. So stick with us, stick with the Cubs. We're gonna get through this. All right, go Cubs.
Go Cubbies.
Good night, John.